the concepts, the psychoanalytic concepts that correlate with warrior virtues. We want to talk about the tempering of the young warrior. There are 3 self-functions that psychoanalysis has delineated. The first is here's the $300 word, the aversive self-function, the aversive, A-V-E-R-S-I-V-E. That is the capacity of a person, any mature person, to recognize when something is toxic for them and begin to form a secure boundary against that. And if you look around you in your world, you'll find many people who are in the presence of toxicity who do not have an aversive function. So that exists at the level of cellular organisms. So it's a biological capacity to create a boundary against toxins. The second is a wider ranging thing, and that is the adversarial self-function. Adversarial. That is the capacity to actually act in a confrontive way when the thing that you are facing is something that should be confronted. To be able to be an adversary. Because there are many times in life when, if you're not willing to be an adversary, I didn't say an unprincipled adversary. That's not what the psychoanalysts are suggesting. But they're suggesting that you have to be able to say no. And you have to be able to advocate for a vision that you feel is more just. And that's going to be an occasion of conflict. So you need to realize that persons who are conflict averse are immature in this sector of their personality. And the third is more general even than that. It is called efficacy, the E-F-F-I-C-A-C-Y, the efficacy self-function. And each of these functions you have to learn from other people. Each one you learn first from your relationship, the self-object, and as you develop it becomes a self-function. It becomes a part of your functioning. So efficacy, self-esteem, legitimate self-esteem is heavily grounded in the efficacy self-function. Some people have called it competence, motivation. But Ernest Wolfe, great analyst in Chicago, wrote about it as efficacy. And this is what happens when you employ your gifts in an effective way. And even if nobody else notices it, nobody's looking, but you get a rush of a sense of satisfaction and vitality because you know you can do it well. And it's very interesting. A lot of people have a lot of self-esteem, grandiose self-esteem, coming from a flooding of their royal sectors. Because the royal sector doesn't need to be, when it's operating by itself, I don't need to be able to do anything to be wonderful. I just am wonderful. And even if I'm a complete up at everything I do, My mother thought I was wonderful, and I'm wonderful. So I don't really need to try. I don't need to learn. I don't need the discipline. I don't need to study. And in the United States, we've turned that into our educational system, you know? Self-esteem-based promotion, having nothing to do with whether or not you can work, whether you can actually do the math. So efficacy is some, if you're going to have a healthy sense of self-esteem, not one simply based on your narcissism and your grandiosity, a good bit of it is going to have a foundation in your actual trained capacity, your capacity to deploy your potentials in such a way that you look at it and you say, that's a pretty good painting, or that's a pretty good poem I just wrote, or that's a pretty good marathon I just ran. You can fill in the blank with the particular actual achievement. One of the things we've noticed is that a person that has that experience, their vitality of a sense of their personal self is really enriched. It shouldn't be the only source of a sense of self. But a man that doesn't have that, who has not been encouraged by a mentor to really develop his skills, is missing out on a lot of strength. So those three things are in the warrior sector psychologically. Capacity for averse, response, protection, adversarial, the ability to struggle for that which is worth struggling for, and efficacy, the ability to be effective. You see somebody that's ineffective, they haven't had a warrior initiation. Okay. So,
Robert,
yeah.
I think maybe there's also point out, because I heard the question earlier about like the bullying and stuff, is that, presumably that there are ineffective initiations that also serve as what makes up for initiation in the modern world. So,
oh yeah,
your story of the tree cutting and all that stuff.
Yeah.
There are a lot, just because you haven't been initiated in the warrior doesn't mean you're not a bully or that you're not aggressive, because they're the passive guys on the one hand, and for every passive guy, there's somebody that is a bully and a monster boy in the active mode. And the world is being run by them now. And the world, in 1990, I was writing about this stuff, and I was looking at a very dark future. And I said, if men don't start helping boys with this, with learning to regulate these instinctual energies, things are going to get worse. And I've started predicting an increase in terrorism around the world because of the way in which young men are being abandoned around the world. I wish I would have been wrong. Turns out I was horribly right about my predictions about that, and it's only going to get worse now. But anyway, just a few things about training the warrior. Assertiveness training. Probably everybody in this room ought to really look hard at the assertiveness training. To the extent that you're not creatively assertive in the various settings of your life, you're wasting this archetypal energy. And it's going into destructive, trickster, unproductive, uncreative expressions in your life. So, one of the things, if I get a guy coming into me who's really weak on this, I'll just give him the book by Bach, Creative Aggression. If you're a nice guy, that book's really going to offend you. And if you're offended by it, that means you really need it. Bach, George Bach. He's really... But but he has got a wonderful section in there. It's worth the price of the book. And it's called The Price of Nice. The Price of Nice. And it's all the things that you create in your world and in your family and in your society by worshiping at the shrine of niceness. Nice is not a term we apply to men. That is a term we apply to boys. And when it's applied to men, it's not a compliment. Remember that when somebody tells you you're such a nice man.
How do you spell his second name?
B-A-C-H. All right, and I just want to throw out a few things that can help. I send a lot of people to martial arts training. If they're really nice guys, I send them to Aikido, so they can engage.
Nice guys, they go to Aikido.
Yes, because that's universal love. You know, they can kick your ass, but they do it with universal love. And so if you're a pacifist guy, you can go do Aikido. You don't have any excuse. And another thing, learn to pilot a plane. Because if you try to pilot a plane before you get serious about your warrior virtues, you will be dead. Because guys that fly planes and think they can bypass the warrior virtues, they die. Because a warrior checks details. They don't cut corners. They make sure the chute is packed right. They go through the checklist. They operate in a linear, tracked, monitored world where not anything is left to chance. Because when in the warrior's world, when you leave something to chance, people die unnecessarily. Do you follow that? Okay. And get this, project management. If you're a lousy warrior, go take some seminars in project management. Because if you show me a guy who's really a fabulous project manager, I'll show you a guy who's got some high-level warrior skills. He doesn't have to bully anybody. He knows how to ask the right questions to find out where the sloppiness is, and he will create a means to get it done and get it done effectively, utilizing the right amount of resources. So you might know a lot of guys who you can't stand that are project managers. And that's right. You know, just because you got a lot of warrior stuff doesn't mean you're likable, right? But don't forget that. If you can't manage a project, don't attribute it to your typology. Oh, I'm just an intuitive type. And, you know, I'm just I'm an intuitive feeler. Well, that's not an excuse. Sorry. Okay. Two other things. Study ethics. Because the warrior's realm is the realm of the discernment of right and wrong and good and evil. And people who have an insufficient warrior initiation have insufficient outrage at the real evil in the world. So, you know, I'm not impressed with people who try to tell me that the warrior's a bad thing. Because if you don't have any warrior, you can meditate in white light meditation while children are being eaten all around the world and not feel a thing except bliss.